Exodus 25, verse 40 is where we're going to start. Because we're actually in Exodus 26 this morning, but what can tend to happen is as we're looking at these plans for the tabernacle, you and I can tend to look at this as this is boring or mundane information. Why in the world do we need to know this? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that this morning. But before we do that, look at the last thing that he said in Exodus 25, verse 40, before we go over to Exodus 26. God says to Moses, "And see to it that you make them according to the pattern which was shown you on the mountain." So there's an extremely important lesson here, and that is that as we're going through all of these plans, as God is telling them how to build the tabernacle, how to construct it, one of the big important lessons, one of the lessons is that God always has a plan. God is not making things up on the spot as he goes. Now it's important for you and I to understand that, because oftentimes that's where you and I falter. That's where our faith will falter. Is we cannot see ahead what's going to happen, but understanding that God always has a plan is extremely important. That's what will sustain us. That's what will motivate us to continue walking with the Lord. Is knowing that, you know what, I don't know what's coming up around the corner, but God, I know that you have a plan. And God is revealing that plan here in this portion of Scripture with Moses. He's revealing that plan. He's revealing that he already had a plan. For you and I, it works by faith. As you and I step out by faith and we continue to follow and move after what God is doing, what happens is God reveals more of that plan. He does not give his entire plan to us all at once. We wish that would happen, that we wish that he would just tell us exactly what he's doing in this time, but he does not work that way. And so that the understanding that, you know what, God's got this all planned out. There's nothing that surprises him. There's nothing that he's just making up right now, but he's got a plan. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to know. We'll talk some more about that. But Exodus 26 is where we are at. We're still looking at plans for the tabernacle. Last time we saw plans for the Ark of the Covenant, for the mercy seat, for the lampstand, for the table of showbread. Today we've got four main divisions in Exodus 26. Curtains, we'll see what curtains are all about. We'll see some coverings, which seem to be different from the curtains slightly. And then constructing the walls of the tabernacle. And then the court dividers. Now who remembers, who can tell me, what is the tabernacle for? What is the tabernacle for? No. To hold the Ten Commandments, okay. The Ten Commandments will eventually end up in that Ark of the Covenant that goes inside of the tabernacle. Does anybody know what the tabernacle is for? Okay. The tabernacle, what God is, the plans that he's giving to Moses for the people to build, it is a tent of meeting. So God wants to meet with his people, and he's having Moses build this tabernacle, this tent of meeting, so that they have a place to go to meet with him. So it's a place of meeting. Now, let's go ahead and move on here, see what he's got planned. Verses 1 through 13, we see curtains. Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine woven linen. So what do we learn there? We learn that these curtains actually make up the tabernacle itself. Now, we'll find out in a few minutes that they don't actually make up the walls. However, they do hang over. We'll see all of that. Moreover, verse 1, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine woven linen. And blue, purple, and scarlet thread, with artistic designs of cherubim you shall weave them. The length of each curtain shall be 28 cubits. Does anybody remember what a cubit is? Anybody remember what a cubit is? What is it? Yes.
What, like your elbow to your hand?
Yeah, it's about, they believe that it was about 18 inches, basically from your elbow to your hand, somewhere in there, unless you have short little Mexican arms like I do, little pterodactyl arms, you know? Or not pterodactyl, what is it?
Tyrannosaurus?
Tyrannosaurus Rex, yes. So the length of each curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. And every one of the curtains shall have the same measurement, so it'll be uniform. 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another, and the other 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another. Okay, so you got a group of 5 and a group of 5. The 5 are attached. These 5 are attached. And you shall make loops of blue yarn on the edge of the curtain, on the selvage of one set. And likewise you shall do on the outer edge of the other curtain of the second set. 50 loops you shall make in the one curtain, and 50 loops you shall make on the edge of the curtain that is on the end of the second set. I'm sure you're all tracking along. It's being played out perfectly in your mind. At the end of verse 5, that the loops may be clasped to one another. And you shall make 50 clasps of gold, and couple the curtains together with the clasps, so that it may be one tabernacle. So we see there that the very first section is about curtains that are being attached to one another in order to form a tabernacle. So the next thing he does is in verse 7, you shall also make curtains of goat's hair. Now the first set of curtains, all those curtains he was telling us about, verse 1, with 10 curtains of fine woven linen. All these beautiful colors. Now, he says in verse 7, that you shall also make curtains of goat's hair, to be a tent over the tabernacle. So the next thing we find out is that he's having to make curtains in order to form a tabernacle tent. So he's got the tabernacle covered with these curtains. Now he's giving them instructions on how to make a curtain or a tent for the tabernacle out of goat's hair. He says in verse 7, you shall make 11 curtains. The length of each curtain shall be 30 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. And the 11 curtains shall all have the same measurements. And you shall couple 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. And you shall double over the 6th curtain at the forefront of the tent. You shall make 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that is outermost in one set, and 50 loops on the edge of the curtain of the second set. And you shall make 50 bronze clasps. Remember, the first ones had gold clasps, now bronze. Put the clasps into the loops and couple the tent together, that it may be one. The remnant that remains of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remains, shall hang over the back of the tabernacle, and a cubit on one side and a cubit on the other side of what remains of the length of the curtains of the tent shall hang over the sides of the tabernacle, on this side and on that side, to cover it. Now, let's go into our second main division. Hey, not that. Let's go. We'll come back to that. Curtains. So we have the tabernacle tent. Let's look at the coverings real quickly. The reason I skipped over that video is because the video is going to show this next section also. We'll watch it all together. Verse 14. You shall also make a covering of ram skins dyed red. So we have gold, we've got purple, we've got bronze, all these beautiful colors. Now we've got these ram skins dyed red, and they're make a covering of ram skins, excuse me, dyed red for the tent, and a covering of badger skins above that. So ram skins and badger skins. So the coverings, obviously.
And thou shalt make boards from the top.
Go back. Let's go back before I confuse myself. So right now we're going to see a video about the curtains and these coverings. You're going to notice that the translation that he's reading is slightly different. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just slightly different. Let's go back. There we go.
Make the tabernacle from 10 sheets of fine linen. These sheets are to be decorated with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. with figures of cherubim skillfully embroidered into them. Each sheet must be 42 feet long and 6 feet wide. All 10 sheets must be exactly the same size. Join 5 of these sheets together into one set. Then join the other 5 sheets into a second set. Put loops of blue yarn along the edge of the last sheet in each set. The 50 loops along the edge of one set are to match the 50 loops along the edge of the other. Then make 50 gold clasps to fasten the loops of the 2 sets of sheets together, making the tabernacle a single unit. Make heavy sheets of cloth from goat hair to cover the tabernacle. There must be 11 of these sheets, each 45 feet long and 6 feet wide. All 11 of these sheets must be exactly the same size. Join 5 of these together into one set and join the other 6 into a second set. The 6th sheet of the second set is to be doubled over at the entrance of the sacred tent. Put 50 loops along the edge of the last sheet in each set and fasten them together with 50 bronze clasps. In this way, the 2 sets will become a single unit. An extra half sheet of this roof covering will be left to hang over the back of the tabernacle, and the covering will hang down an extra 18 inches on each side. On top of these coverings, place a layer of tanned ram skins, and over them put a layer of fine goat skin leather. This will complete the roof covering.
See if I can not confuse myself. We got the tabernacle, so we saw the tabernacle itself, and then we saw the tabernacle tent. Now, probably in that video, you saw that there were some walls. It's like, well, it looks like walls, so it's not just a tent. So we'll get to the walls in just a moment. The coverings we saw.
And thou shalt make boards from the.
Oh no! Let's do this. Watch this.
And thou shalt make.
Right there. Just in case you're taking notes, we'll go back to that video again. I've got myself all mixed up. Not a big deal. But the coverings at the end were to be skins over those different curtains. Okay, so a couple of different things. First of all, what did we learn from the video? We learned from the video that we need updated videos. Those 8-year-old crusty videos, no good. Okay, but still, it gives us a good picture, a good idea. Because reading through this, you're probably doing the same thing that I am. When I'm reading through it, I'm like into verse 2. It's like I'm done. Like what am I even reading right now? And so then I have to look for a video and find. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. But all these different coverings, and then the skins, all these different layers. Something that you need to know is like, why would God have them making a tent? Well, tents, there were cities and different things, structures, but tents also, nomadic tribes were out there living in tents also. So it's not a strange thing to see this tent. Plus, they're all living in tents. God's living in a tent, so to speak. You know, it's not that he's living or trapped in the tabernacle, but that's the meeting place. Okay, let's move on, and then we'll come back to that next video. Okay. Let's move on to the third section. Let me see what happens. Hey, all right. Constructing the walls. Verses 15 through 30. And for the tabernacle you shall make the boards, okay, the boards of acacia wood standing upright. So what he's about to tell them now is these are the walls that surround the tabernacle. Verse 16. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and 1.5 cubits shall be the width of each board. 2 tenons. Tenons are, you're going to see them in the video, they're basically pegs. Okay? Think about Legos. How many of you like Legos? Come on. Who's not too proud? Okay? I love Legos. Okay? A little bit? Okay? I know some of you, if I talk to your parents and asked them, do they still have Legos? They would tell us the truth. Okay? But think about a Lego with those little pegs up on top of the blocks. Something like that. Okay? Verse 17, 2 tenons shall be in each board for binding one to another. Thus you shall make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And you shall make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side. You shall make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards. 2 sockets under each of the boards for its 2 tenons. And for the second side of the tabernacle, the north side, there shall be 20 boards. And there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under each of the boards. For the far side of the tabernacle, westward, you shall make 6 boards. And you shall also make 2 boards for the 2 back corners of the tabernacle. They shall be coupled together at the bottom, and they shall be coupled together at the top by 1 ring. Thus it shall be for both of them. They shall be for the 2 corners. So there shall be 8 boards with their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under each of the boards. Not confusing whatsoever. 26, verse 26. And you shall make bars. So the first thing that we saw was, in constructing the walls, they had to have boards. The next thing we find out is that they had to have bars. Verse 26, and you shall make bars of acacia wood. 5 for the boards on one side of the tabernacle. 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the tabernacle. 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tabernacle for the far side westward. The middle bar shall pass through the midst of the boards from end to end. You shall overlay the boards with gold, make their rings of gold as holders for the bars, and overlay the bars with gold. And you shall raise up the tabernacle according to its pattern which you were shown on the mountain. All right, here we go. Let's go back and find that video. See if we can find it here. Where's it at? Should be right there.
And thou shalt make boards from the tabernacle of shittim wood, standing up. 10 cubits shall be the length of a board, and 1.5 cubits shall be the breadth of one board. 2 tenons shall there be in one board, set in order one against another. Thus shalt thou make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And thou shalt make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards on the south side southward. And thou shalt make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. And for the second side of the tabernacle on the north side there shall be 20 boards, and there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. And for the sides of the tabernacle westward thou shalt make 6 boards, and 2 boards shalt thou make for the corners of the tabernacle in the 2 sides. And they shall be coupled together beneath, and they shall be coupled together above the head of it unto one ring. And they shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. And thou shalt make bars of shittim wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the tabernacle, for the 2 sides westward. And the middle bar in the midst of the board shall reach from end to end. And thou shalt overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold for places for the bars. And thou shalt overlay the bars with gold. And thou shalt rear up the tabernacle according to the fashion thereof which was showed thee in the mount.
All right, so there, that last shot gave you a general idea of what it was supposed to look like when it was all finished. Let's go ahead and let me see if I can get myself situated here. After the cover, the constructing the walls, the boards, the bars. Now we'll look at court dividers. Court dividers, verse 31. You shall make a veil. So this was their front door. You shall make a veil of woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. Sounds similar to the curtains that they were making to go over the entire place. It shall be woven with an artistic design of cherubim, and you saw in the video the artist's rendition of what that might have looked like. You shall hang it upon the 4 pillars of acacia wood overlaid with gold. Their hooks shall be gold, upon 4 sockets of silver. And you shall hang the veil from the clasps. Then you shall bring the ark of the testimony in there behind the veil. So that's where the court dividers. Okay, so you saw the tent. It's kind of this rectangle tent. It's like a shoebox shape. You go in through the front, and you've got the holy place there, which we're going to find out in just a moment. And then there was a veil, and then beyond that was the Holy of Holies, or the Most Holy. Verse 33, and you shall hang the veil from the clasps. Then you shall bring the ark of the testimony in there behind the veil. So there, that ark of the testimony that they were to make, they were to bring that into that solitary room back there by itself. The veil in verse 33 shall be a divider for you between the holy place and the most holy. So has anybody here ever heard of the Holy of Holies? Anybody ever heard that word or that phrase or that name? The Holy of Holies, okay. The Holy of Holies, this is what we're talking about now. There's a divider. The veil separates the holy court, the holy place, from the most holy. Where the Ark of the Covenant was going in, that would be considered the Holy of Holies. Okay? So, someone from the outside has got to come into that tabernacle through the one curtain, and then there is a separate veil there. That veil is the same thing that you would think of when you think of a bride who's wearing a veil. There's something behind that veil. That's the idea, is that the meeting place of God would be back there. So we're told in verse 33 that the ark of the testimony would be there. Verse 34, you shall put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. The ark of the testimony and the mercy seat was where God said, I'm going to meet with you from there. I'll be in that space above the 2 cherubim, those gold cherubim that were going to be on top. And that's, I'm going to meet you there. So this is the reason why there's a curtain to get into the place and then a separate veil, because that meeting place was a special place that at the time not everyone was allowed to go into. The people would be represented by priests. The people would be represented by a high priest eventually. We don't have that yet. But the idea is that the priest could go into the holy place, and then the high priest could go into the holiest place, or the most holy. And that's where he would meet with God there at the Ark of the Testimony. Now verse 35 says, you shall set the table outside the veil. What table? Does anybody remember what table we're talking about? Anybody at all? Like, where'd the table come from? Okay, there was a table that we talked about in chapter 25 that was the table of showbread. That's where they would put the bread on. You shall set the table outside the veil. Don't have it in the most holy. In the most holy, only the ark of the testimony. So verse 35, you shall set the table outside the veil, and the lampstand across from the table on the side of the tabernacle toward the south. And you shall put the table on the north side. So if we had those items here, the lampstand would be on this side of our room, because that would be facing south, if this were the tabernacle. And on this side would be the lampstand, the golden lampstand. So in verse 35, you shall put the table on the north side. I just mixed you up. Lampstand on that side, table on this side. Okay? Now in verse 36, he says this, you shall make a screen for the door of the tabernacle, woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. Let me get you some subpoints on here. We've got the veil that we already talked about. Now he's telling them how to go back. No! Where's it at? Right there, screen door. Now he's telling them how to make the screen door, verse 36. You shall make a screen door for the door of the tabernacle. So this is the entrance into the whole place. Woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen made by a weaver. And you shall make for the screen 5 pillars of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold. Their hooks shall be gold, and you shall cast 5 sockets of bronze for them. We've got gold, we've got silver, we've got bronze, we've got all these beautiful colors. Let's go back and find out what these things look like. Let's see, where was that at? Boom. One more. Right there.
Across the inside of the tabernacle hang a special curtain made of fine linen with cherubim skillfully embroidered into the cloth, using blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. Hang this inner curtain on gold hooks set into 4 posts made from acacia wood and overlaid with gold. The posts will fit into the silver bases. When the inner curtain is in place, put the Ark of the Covenant behind it. This curtain will separate the holy place from the most holy place. Then put the Ark's cover, the place of atonement, on top of the Ark of the Covenant, inside the most holy place. Place the table and lampstand across the room from each other outside the inner curtain. The lampstand must be placed on the south side, and the table must be set toward the north. Make another curtain from fine linen for the entrance of the sacred tent, and embroider exquisite designs into it, using blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. Hang this curtain on gold hooks set into 5 posts made from acacia wood and overlaid with gold. The post will fit into 5 bronze bases.
All right, so there you got an idea of what the veil looked like, what the screen door looked like. Now, let me ask you some questions before we finish. Okay? Follow with me, please. Verse 1. Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine woven linen, blue, purple, scarlet thread, with artistic designs of cherubim, you shall weave them. Down in verse 4, and you shall make loops of blue yarn on the edge of the curtain. In verse 6, and you shall make 50 clasps of gold and couple the curtains together with the clasps. Verse 7, you shall make curtains of goat's hair. Verse 11, you shall make 50 bronze clasps. Put the clasps into their loops. And then we get into the construction of the walls. These acacia boards. Look at verse 19. You shall make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards. So here's the question. The question is, we've got fine woven linen for the curtains. We've got gold clasps. We've got bronze clasps. We've got silver sockets. As we got down to the bottom, it talked about having a weaver. Where was it at? Verse 36, you shall make a screen door for the door of the tabernacle, a screen for the door of the tabernacle, woven, there it is again, of blue, purple, scarlet thread, fine woven linen, made by a weaver. So all of these incredible things that they were to make. Now let me ask you a question, and what I'm looking for is for your guess. All I've got is a guess. I think it's a safe guess, but I want to find out what your guess is. How in the world were they supposed to know how to make all of these things? Does anybody have a clue? No? Okay, that's a good one. Maybe God's telling them to make something, and then he just puts the design in their brains, in their minds, in their hearts. Okay? That's a possibility. Okay? It doesn't tell us how. I've got a different guess, but I like that guess. Anybody else? What do you think?
Verse 30, it says, set up this tabernacle according to the pattern you are shown on the mountain.
Okay. Yeah. So it certainly is a pattern. You're absolutely right. There's a pattern there that they were to follow, and they would have an idea of what it looked like. Okay? But how about actually making a gold clasp, or a bronze clasp, or silver sockets? How did they know how to make all of that stuff that God is telling them to make? Anybody? Cole, what do you think?
They might have done all that stuff in Egypt.
Okay. So that would be my guess. Again, we're not told here as of yet. But my guess is, and here's the problem. The problem is I've watched movies about like the Ten Commandments. And all that they show is the slaves in Egypt, the Israelites, building structures. They're moving large bricks. They're having to make their own bricks. And you kind of get this idea like, you know what, maybe the slaves in Egypt, they're just making these brick buildings. But I want you to stop and think about what you know about the Egyptians, about their artwork, their hieroglyphics, and how detailed they were. And probably, and this is my guess, along with Cole, my guess is that while the Egyptians were forcing them to work, the Egyptians probably wanted quality work. Like, give us some detail. Don't just make me a plain coat or garment, but I want you to weave it, and I want you to put some designs in there. And so it's very possible, my guess would be, that they learned much of this while they were slaves in Egypt. Now, what is the point with all of this? Some of us don't even like history, so it's like, who even cares about history? I love history, but here's a bigger point than just history. The point is this, that there are times in your life and in my life when we feel trapped. We feel like, you know what, I'm not hearing from God. Nothing's really moving or budging. Like, I'm praying, but I don't think that God's hearing. And I'm not really sure what's going on. And we can very easily get bogged down in the mundane. Like, I'm just going day by day, living from moment to moment, day by day, and it feels like I'm just like on this conveyor belt. You know, I get up, I do my schooling, or I do my work, or whatever I'm doing, and then I come home and I do this, and then at night I go to bed, and then I wake up, and I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And where is God? And the pastor at church keeps telling me that God's got a calling for my life. Well, what is it? Because I'm not seeing it. I'm not hearing it. And I've been to the camps, and I've spent the late nights, and I've prayed, and I've sat in worship, and I've cried and called out to the Lord, and He's not answering me. And I want you to think about hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, these Israelites were stuck in Egypt and probably had those same concerns. Where is God? Why is He allowing us to suffer? Why won't He answer? Why won't He send help? Why won't He rescue us? And the entire time, God, as we found out at the very beginning of our study, already had a plan. He already had it all planned out. But the other thing is that probably, if in fact they did learn all of these crafts, all of this artistry in Egypt, probably what was going on is while they felt like they were just stuck there serving the Egyptians and building things for the Egyptians, the entire time God was prepping them for something so much bigger, something so much more important. And yet you and I oftentimes, when we feel like we're stuck, that's when the complaining starts. That's when we stop seeking God and we start complaining. And I would venture to say that many of us are wasting time. That if you feel like you're in a place right now where, man, I'm just stuck, I'm not really going anywhere, not really doing anything, no doubt, I won't even say probably, I'll go even beyond that. No doubt, God is using the time to produce in you something that He is going to use for a greater purpose later on down the road. It may be 2 hours later, maybe 2 weeks, 2 years, maybe 10 years down the road. It may feel like, you know what, if the pastor keeps telling me there's a call, that God's given me a gift, but I don't know what it is. So instead of growing discouraged, what you and I need to do is to learn how to be faithful in the mundane, daily things. Because no doubt in it, God is teaching us something. Like the Karate Kid. Wax on, wax off. Like the painting. what is this? This is dumb. This is, I don't understand. And all the while, it was meant for something so much bigger. Learning how to be content. Learning how to be faithful in the mundane things. It's all part of the preparation. It's God preparing you to use you for something so much greater. That's what God had been doing all along. While I believe that God could supernaturally impose some gift or some ability for artwork into your brain at any given moment, I think He can do that. I think He could. And maybe that is in fact what He did here. It just seems more likely to me that they knew how to do all of these things by the time they got to the wilderness of Sinai. And can you imagine? Can you imagine? I mean, think about this for a moment, that you are an individual, man, woman, doesn't matter, and you are in Egypt, you're stuck there, and you're stuck making clothing for your Egyptian master. And you feel like this is the dumbest thing ever. I hate this. And all the while, God was preparing you to build Him, to construct Him a meeting place. And you get to the wilderness of Sinai, and all of a sudden, bam, it all makes sense. This is what I used to do in Egypt for these pagans. And now, I get to work on God's tabernacle. What an incredible privilege. And then all of a sudden, all of the years that you spent in toil working for someone else would be erased in that moment. It wouldn't matter. You wouldn't care. Who cares? God has been working in me for 28 years to get me to this point. And you may think to yourself, well, that's, okay, so you're in this shoebox, teaching, what's the big whoop? But all of those years, preparation, all of the countless, I've scrubbed so many toilets in my life, mopped so many floors. Those were the good old days. I wish I could go back to doing that. Fixing things, whatever it was. All of that was just preparation for whatever He's doing now. And no doubt, whatever's going on now, He's planning something else later on. So, I know it gets discouraging. You feel like, man, I'm not going anywhere, not doing anything. Learn to be faithful in the mundane things, the daily mundane things. No doubt God is teaching you some skill. Now, let me ask you one more question. Why were these things, the curtains that you saw in the video, curtains were clasped together. Boards that were put together had to have a bar through them to hold them together. Sockets. Did you notice that nothing was permanent? Nothing was permanent. Everything was movable. Why is that? Does anybody know why? What do you think?
So they could travel with the tent.
Yeah, so they could travel. It was not a permanent edifice, a permanent building. They dwelt in tents. God lived in that tent. And when they moved, they all moved together. Now remember, we read it last time. Hebrews, the book of Hebrews says that, I'm going to go back, actually look it up because I chopped it all up. But Christ, in Hebrews 9:11, but Christ came as high priest of the good things to come, with the greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is, not of this creation. So in Exodus, or rather in Hebrews, we're told that Jesus was the better and greater tabernacle. So we're learning about the tabernacle, about this tent of meeting. And then we remember Jesus. And the fact that Jesus came, and that in Jesus, you and I met God. That's the meeting place. No man can come unto the Father except through Jesus. That's what Jesus said. So Jesus has become our meeting tent, the better and greater meeting tent. And we meet God in Jesus. Remember that Jesus came in a tent. It was that human body that he had. He was born into flesh. It was a meeting place, simply a meeting place, not permanent. It was temporary. What did he do? He came here, he grew up in that tent, that body, and then eventually he died. You and I meet Jesus, or meet God in that tent. Our tent now is Jesus. We don't have to have this kind of place where we all go to. You know, I can only travel there once a year or once every 5 years and meet with God. Now we're meeting with God everywhere that we go, anytime that we want. It could be on the way to the car in a few minutes. It could be on the way to school tomorrow. I guess you are getting ready to go back to school, some of you. Or maybe to practice, you can meet with him there. Or right before that test. Oh God, I'm seeking you now, meeting with you now. Have mercy on me. I didn't study. We now have the opportunity of not having one place that we can go to meet. But we can meet with Jesus. We can meet with God through Jesus at any time. Something else just passed through my mind, and it's gone. Came in one ear, and it's gone. Something else I was going to mention was, here's the last question. Why is God so specific? Anybody want to take a guess as to why God is so specific? Yes. Because we are really dumb. Yeah, that's probably a very good reason. Actually, we'll go right off of that. Yes, it's because we are dumb. Does anybody else have anything to add to that, or maybe a different guess? Why would God be so specific? Well, let me ask you this. Okay. Do you think that it is because God is just so darn picky? Maybe it's because he's a micromanager. You know micromanagers. Hey, do me a favor, I need you to paint that wall. Except do it this way. No, you're doing it wrong. Fix it. Do it this way. Micromanager? Is that why? Why is God so specific? You're taking the easy route out because you know I'm going to tell you. I'm not telling you. Let's pray. Just kidding. He's specific because when we come to God, we must come to God on his terms. You cannot make up your own way. I cannot make up my own way to God. It must be as he has designed it. And you and I, we come to God through Jesus. We don't come to God through some other religious leader, some other religious icon, through a statue. You and I do not come to God through the good things that we do. We don't say, well, if I could just help enough old ladies across the street. Check, check, check. Okay, God, I reached it. Or you know what, if I could just over my lifetime buy enough boxes of Girl Scout cookies, then I've earned my points. We tend to do things on a point system where I've made the, I've scored, I've made the points, I've done something nice, I helped at VBS, I worked at the church, I did this thing, I went to the camp, I went to enough of those boring Bible studies where Pastor Chris was at, and so I've met my quota. So, okay, God, now you got to let me in. That is not how we experience God's salvation. We experience God's salvation the way that he set it up. It's been designed already. And that is through Jesus Christ. So God, in giving these very specific instructions, wanted us to know that it's on God's terms. Now the good thing is, yeah, there's a certain way, a specific way that we're to do it. It's through Jesus. But the good news is that anyone can show up. You can come to God an absolute wreck. An absolute mess. He's not asking that you clean yourself up first and then come. Anyone can come, whosoever. But when you come to God, it is through Jesus. That's what this is all about. That's why he's so specific, and that's why I take time to read through all of these verses so that we get that drilled into our head that, oh, God was very specific about the boards and the curtains, and he wanted this on it, and he wanted this many clasps and loops. And can you imagine if he said, hey, I want you to build me a meeting place, ready, go. Good night, nurse. What would it look like? Somebody would have, I think it should be the Taj Mahal. Somebody would have, I think it should be this palace. Well, I think it should be this, this business building. Half would look like a palace, half would look like an Amazon warehouse, half would look like your own home, whatever. It would be all sorts of different. So he doesn't do that. He says, no, if you're going to come to me, this is the way that it must be done. Listen, I'm talking to the church primarily. Many of you you've been here, you've grown up here. You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful that you are not counting on the things that you've done or the amount of time that you've put in here or the amount of hours that you've suffered through church here. Like, well, I did all that I was supposed to do, and I went to children's ministry, and I went to junior high ministry, and I went to high school ministry, and I went to young adults, and I went into the sanctuary, and I've just done all, I've met all the requirements. It's not like a list of requirements where you just, okay, check, okay, man, 3 more, and then I get to have eternal life. It's not the way it works. It only happens through a personal relationship with Jesus. If you're living off of the faith of your parents, it's not going to work. There's only one way, and it's through Jesus. So if you're sitting here today and thinking, well, you know what, maybe that's me counting on the activities and different things that I've done. Maybe I don't know. Like I'm questioning myself right now. Like have I really placed my faith in Jesus? Like, and if not, just do that right now. Do that right now while we pray. Father, thank you so much.